Hello everyone, this is Mike Fauché, and today I want to discuss the various storage options available such as TrueNAS, UNRAID, as well as off-the-shelf NAS units from brands such as Terramaster, QNAP, Synology, Ubiquiti, and UGreen. We'll delve into the pros and cons of each and help you decide which solution is best for you. It's no longer an easy decision, so stick around and watch the rest of this video. And if you end up finding this video useful, please don't forget to like and subscribe, as it really does help support the channel. Back in 2022, I did a video on this exact topic, and since that time, many things have changed that make the choice even more difficult. Since I've been reviewing storage solutions for a long time and have had the pleasure of testing many of these options that are currently available, I wanted to update my thoughts and choices to help you simplify your decision. Let's start with UNRAID. UNRAID has become very popular for the home enthusiast, primarily because of its very flexible storage expansion. And out of all the DIY solutions, it's to me the easiest to use. UNRAID isn't a free solution, and its cost depends on the number of drives and how much expansion you're planning on. However, it's relatively inexpensive option that offers the ability to repurpose older hardware. It also allows a level of expansion flexibility not generally available in other solutions. You can start an UNRAID system with just 2 or 3 drives and add a 4th, 5th, or any number that you want later on, pretty painlessly, and most importantly, you don't have to have all the drives the same size as long as you're okay with the slower performance. This allows you to effectively scale your storage and capacity over time. At its core, UNRAID relies on parity-based storage configurations. While this provides data protection, it does have huge impacts on write performance. You generally won't get the same speeds from an UNRAID array as you would from an off-the-shelf device that has RAID or ZFS-based systems. You aren't limited to using the drives of the same size, and you don't have to rebuild your entire array if you want to upgrade or add capacity. You can just simply add a data drive or just replace a smaller drive with a larger one. The main limitation is that the parity drive must be equal to or larger than the largest data drive that you have in your array. To get started, you just need one parity drive and one data drive. To complicate your choice further, recent versions of UNRAID have also added the capability to run ZFS. ZFS works much like a traditional RAID in that all the drives have to be the same size, and you do not give up any performance. The downside is current ZFS implementations in UNRAID don't allow single drive expansion, though it's planned for a future release. That said, you can mix your pools, so you can have a ZFS pool for hot, fast storage, and also have a standard array for backup or archive. If you look at an early video, which I will link to below, I detailed converting one of my current NAS units, specifically the UGreen device, into an UNRAID server using ZFS. I used 2 NVMe drives for the cache and 4 spinning drives for a ZFS storage pool. The results were really interesting, and the performance was really good and on par with other ZFS-based solutions. In summary, UNRAID is a great solution if you don't mind doing a little bit of work. TrueNAS is probably my least favorite solution for the typical home user. TrueNAS is a free and powerful solution, but my biggest complaint with it is the steeper learning curve and the complexity. In my opinion, TrueNAS is aimed at more experienced user, small business, or enterprise, where you have an experienced person to manage the device. In previous versions, expansion was a major issue, but in recent releases, they now allow you to expand your storage one drive at a time, which is a really welcome change. Again, I think TrueNAS is an extremely powerful tool, and if you're looking for strictly a lab solution, it might be a great way to go. Currently, I'm running a small SSD-based TrueNAS server, which I use mostly for testing, and the performance and reliability have been outstanding. As with other ZFS or RAID solutions, even when you experience a drive failure, as I did last year, I was easily able to replace the drive with zero downtime. It's still easier with some of the other solutions, but it worked flawlessly, and overall it does everything you'd want from a robust storage system, but it's just a bit more complex overall than using something like UNRAID. Now that we've discussed the 2 main contenders for the DIY solution, let's talk about off-the-shelf NAS units. Selecting one should be easy, however it's become even more complex than ever before. First off, there's a larger variety of manufacturers now in this space with many different hardware configurations. At any given price point, you have to choose between ARM, Intel, or AMD processors, the amount of RAM you want, the network configuration, and the number of expansion bays. Secondly, you now have complete SSD solutions, as well as different approaches in operating system. The UNAS Pro, for example, capitalizes on its ecosystem with minimal learning curves, but it's very limited. The QNAP and Synology are very mature and polished, while products such as the Terramaster and UGreen are still evolving. To better understand this, let's break this up into categories, starting with the Terramaster and UGreen. Terramaster has been working hard to claim some of the market share by releasing a major new upgrade to their operating system and new hardware, such as one of my favorite all-SSD devices, the FA+. I'm currently running 2 of their devices using TOS 6, and it's improved significantly over earlier versions. It has a newer, more user-friendly interface, and they've added more third-party support. However, it's just not quite as polished and complete as you'll see with QNAP or Synology. In addition, they started to release better and more competitive hardware in some of their newer models. In terms of hardware and pricing, I think they have some good offerings. However, when it comes to their OS, there are still some limitations, such as limited third-party app support. If all you need is storage, Terramaster and their hybrid RAID makes a decent choice, especially on SSD devices. In contrast, UGreen prioritizes hardware in its NAS strategy. New to this space, they've launched devices with compelling hardware specifications and really competitive prices. Based purely on hardware value for your money, UGreen represents a really strong case. Their trade-off lies in their operating system, the UGOS, which is still under active development. UGreen aims to be on feature parity with established brands like QNAP or Synology, but UGOS currently lacks some of their maturity, particularly regarding the choice of native applications and third-party support. Despite these minor limitations, UGreen's NAS line offers arguably unmatched price-to-performance for users who don't need a ton of application support. Synology and QNAP are arguably the top 2 players in the off-the-shelf NAS market. At work, we run multiple Synology units and have had only a couple of minor failures, usually related to the external power supply. I also have a Synology unit at home that they kindly sent to me for testing last year, and it's been working great. However, since I got into this field, I've personally been a bigger fan of QNAP, mainly because of the price and performance. Synology has a remarkably polished, secure, and robust operating system, DSM, or the Disk Station Manager, which is often considered to be the best in the industry. While both Synology's DSM and QNAP's QTS or QUTS Hero are stable and well-supported operating systems from established companies, there are some that would argue that Synology provided a more secure platform. However, the hardware inside the Synology devices sometimes doesn't quite match the competition in terms of value. You'll often find the QNAP or other brands such as UGreen offering superior specifications, like more powerful CPU, more RAM, or faster networking at a very similar price point. This difference might be negligible for simple file storage, but if you plan to leverage your NAS for more demanding tasks such as running Docker containers, third-party applications, Plex servers, or virtual machines, the underlying hardware becomes crucial. A more capable processor, faster networking connectivity, and greater expandability can significantly improve your performance and the experience. Add to that some of the new hardware requirements being imposed by Synology, and most home users might want to think twice about getting one. As for security, in my opinion, I do not want to rely on any NAS manufacturer to be responsible for my security, and therefore I don't let any of my devices, with the exception of the UniFi UNAS Pro, connect to the internet. QNAP offers a more hardware-rich solution for the price compared to Synology. You typically find more powerful processors, hardware decoding, greater amount of RAM expandability, faster integrated networking like 2.5 or 10 gigabit, and enhanced overall performance flexibility, including PCI expansion slots. Furthermore, QNAP provides OS versatility with QTS for traditional RAID and QUTS for a more robust CFS solution. This translates to smoother performance for the demanding application, the option to use ZFS, hardware transcoding capabilities on models that support it, and better future-proofing. Based on hardware specifications and cost, QNAP generally provides a better value than similarly priced Synology units. Let's talk about security, especially considering QNAP's past. While QNAP has faced criticism for security vulnerabilities, often related to their My QNAP cloud service, it's important to remember that Synology and other brands haven't been immune to issues either. The critical factors are the vendor's response time to vulnerabilities, which is generally good for major brands, and more importantly, our own responsibility as users. Simply connecting a NAS to the internet, misconfiguring port forwards or adding port forwards, and enabling default cloud services without understanding the risk is a recipe for disaster, regardless of whether it's a UGreen, Terramaster, Synology, or a QNAP device. Secure configuration is the key. QNAP has significantly improved its default security settings compared to the years past, making it harder for users to unintentionally create insecure setups. Things like default admin accounts are better managed, and potentially risky services are disabled by default. In my view, QNAP is catching up to Synology, not just in features, but also in security. However, I strongly believe that no storage device should be directly exposed to the internet. Exposing a NAS login page or file services directly to the internet is a risky practice. I've used a QNAP for years without any incidents because I access my network remotely through a secure VPN and not any of the built-in services. This approach centralizes security management and provides a far more secure solution than relying on a vendor's provided cloud service, regardless of who the vendor is. Ubiquiti has really thrown the NAS industry a bit of a curveball. The UNAS device has the best and the worst of both worlds. What you get is arguably the easiest operating system, integration into the UniFi ecosystem, 7 drive bays, and built-in 10 gigabit for around $499, which is really tough to beat. However, you only get minimal CPU, no RAM expandability, and no third-party app support. In short, if all you need is pure storage, backups, and file sharing, don't look any further. However, if you need any type of third-party apps like VPNs, Plex, or anything else, this is not for you. It makes a good file repository for something like Plex to run on, but it won't run the Plex app itself. So how do you decide? The first major decision is whether or not you want to build your own solution, or you want to buy an off-the-shelf device, which is the easy part. If you're going to go the DIY route, my current suggestion would most likely be to use UNRAID, especially for home users. I know there are other interesting OS options emerging, but for the mainstream and well-supported options, I'd lean towards UNRAID over TrueNAS, primarily for its flexibility in storage expansion, using drives different sizes, and large community support providing extensive apps. There's nothing wrong with TrueNAS, but in general, the learning curve is much higher. In addition, TrueNAS relies mainly on ZFS and doesn't provide the ease of expandability found in UNRAID. Don't get me wrong, ZFS is an awesome file system and I use it on several devices. However, expanding ZFS pools isn't as easy as the traditional array found in UNRAID. For the average user just looking to store movies or files, the ability to use different sized drives is very valuable. So for that reason, I think UNRAID is a better choice. Let's say that you decided that the UNAS Pro is not for you, but you want an off-the-shelf solution. Which devices do you get? I put some categories to help make your decision a little easier. As an overall thought process for most home users, remember that software and operating systems will change over time, but you're typically stuck with your hardware for a longer period of time. So in my opinion, I tend to favor hardware choice as my priority. If having a strong hardware base, CPU, RAM, networking, for running applications like Plex, Home Assistant, Docker containers, or VMs is important, and you value expandability, make sure you select a NAS with an Intel CPU. Many of the Intel CPUs support what's called QuickSync, which allows you to use hardware decoding and provides a much smoother playback experience. If you look at what's available, QNAP and UGreen provide more devices that use Intel CPUs than any other brand. Next is networking. Though you may only have a 1 gigabit network today, in the near future you may want a 2.5 or preferably a 10 gig network, so you want the hardware that has it built in or can easily be added. Again, QNAP and UGreen are often the best choices and value in this area, offering several models and a variety of prices. If your main priority is just basic file storage, backups, and you don't care about the hardware, Synology is a strong contender. However, from my perspective, the poor value in the hardware and the new hardware requirements coming later this year still make QNAP a better choice. If you're looking for a good hardware value and are comfortable with operating systems that are rapidly improving but will still be less mature than Synology or QNAPs, UGreen would be my choice. They're working hard to achieve feature parity and arguably have some of the best hardware for the price of any of the manufacturers. In summary, if I were to look at the outcome of these three categories, in my opinion, a QNAP with an Intel CPU with expandable RAM and 10 gig capable is the best way to go, as it provides good hardware, fast networking, and polished software. If you want to save a bit of money and can tolerate a slightly less polished OS, UGreen with an Intel CPU and 10 gigabit would be my second choice. To give you context from my own setup and workflow, here's how I currently use the different solutions. I understand that this is a bit more than you need and arguably a way overkill, but it does allow me to use these solutions in various scenarios. Currently, I have two devices I consider my main daily drivers. First is the UNAS Pro, used for more traditional storage, personal data, family shares, and photo archives. For my editing needs and my current projects, I use my favorite NAS of all time, the QNAP TBS H574TX, all NVMe SSD-based NAS device with Thunderbolt 4. It's a very limited storage capacity, but it's currently the best performing NAS I've used to date. I use this for all of my day-to-day work, and the performance over 10 gig allows me to edit, copy, and export projects directly on the NAS without any performance degradation. While SSD storage is limited in capacity compared to hard drives, it's perfect for active projects that can be moved to a slower storage when they're done. As a lower cost alternative, I use the all SSD NAS unit from Terramaster. It's fast, quiet, low power device with 8 drive bays that's proven to be really robust. If you're in the market for a low cost SSD NAS, you should really consider that one. As I do a lot of video work, when I'm all done, I want to archive all of my content to a slower storage. I sync everything on my SSD NAS to UNRAID. In addition to my YouTube storage archive, it holds my large Plex collection. The performance isn't great, and copying large archives can be really slow, but its strength is in scalability, and it's easy to increase the storage. I currently have over 60 terabytes of storage and can easily add more should I need it. As I mentioned, primary storage is my UNAS Pro, and I back up that device to 2 separate devices, as well as the cloud. These units used to be my daily drivers, as they are equipped with both SSDs for performance and hard drives for capacity, and are still a big part of my overall storage. In summary, deciding on the best storage solution for you requires you to make a list of all your priorities and decide what are the most important features for you. What's your budget? How comfortable are you with technical configuration and potential experimentation? How much do you plan to expand in the future? And what are you going to use the NAS for? Do you need just storage, or do you want to run other applications such as Plex, VMs, Dockers? Do you have hardware laying around that you can build it yourself? This is not a simple choice, and the best answer varies for everyone. So if I had to start all over again today and pick one off-the-shelf solution to cover most of my bases, my personal choice would most likely be a capable QNAP NAS. It feels like the most complete package currently available, with strong hardware for the price, good performance, excellent expandability in terms of RAM and PCI cards, networking options like 2.5, 10 gigabit that are built in, a flexible OS choice, giving me the choice to use either QTS or QUTS with native support for ZFS, and arguably equal to the best third-party app support alongside Synology. In my own opinion, I personally wouldn't buy a Synology for my own home lab until their hardware becomes more competitive at similar price points. I love their operating system, it's rock solid and does a good job. I've had zero issues with the Synology DS I've used, but my hesitation is purely hardware value proposition. They do offer units with better hardware, but you'll typically pay a significant premium for it. If you're a business where stability and polished ecosystem are top priorities, the choice might lean you towards Synology, as I did for my workplace. But at home, it's a different story. I want to experiment with test media servers like Plex or Emby, run VMs, and generally push the hardware. For that, I need a robust hardware specs: CPU, RAM, network bandwidth, so performance doesn't become the immediate bottleneck when running third-party applications. I hope this discussion helps clarify some of the options available in the NAS and DIY storage world. It's an evolving space with more choices than before. I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments below. What are you using? Do you agree or disagree with my assessment? Did I miss anything important that should be discussed? Leave your comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.